B.
What was that?
It's me going back to the well.
I kind of like
with the B-roll.
B-roll, the B-hole, yeah.
Oh, my neck.
That's a good well. It's a deep well.
Deep. It's not deep at all. Wake up, everybody. Today is July 23rd, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch and Jason, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. If you decide you like us and want us to have access to review copies of games someday, you can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, how are you doing?
Oh, decent, man. Decent. But a couple things I wanted to get off my chest.
Even though you're so decent.
Even though I'm so decent. Today, we were out in the backyard playing with the kiddie pool. And as you all know, last week I detailed the trees that they removed from my house. And so now we have no shade in the backyard. So we were out there in the blazing hot sun. I think it was like 93, 95 degrees, probably hotter with the heat index. And as I saw the sun coming into my face, I turned to my side, looked down on the ground, and realized that my man boobs are visible in my shadow. So I've reached that point of, I guess, fatherhood, adulthood, obesity. I don't know what you'd call it.
It's a little bit of everything.
It's a little bit of everything. It's a little depressing, but at the same time, I mean, it was inevitable. So
I thought you said you were doing good all with like weight stuff and diet. Was that not true?
Whoa, that doesn't. I mean, yeah, but I had fallen so far because of the
right.
Yeah,
your technique to get back to where you were to
right.
False progress.
Yeah, and then I kind of dropped the ball on working out this week. But what are you going to do? You got to give yourself a grace.
Yeah. Grace upon grace upon grace.
Other thing I wanted to mention is today, I don't know if you saw this, but I saw a lot of social media posts because it's 100 days until Halloween, and everyone was like
I hate that.
Save Halloween, wear masks. And I just have to say that if you think people will wear masks to save Halloween, you are out of your mind. People wouldn't wear masks to save their grandparents. They're not going to wear masks to save Halloween. So anyone who's a huge Halloween fan, I've got some bad news for you. This is not happening this year.
I can't even with that. Like I think it's dumb enough that like when it's 100 days to Christmas or whatever, it's like, I mean, Christmas a little bit because you actually had to plan Christmas out, and it can sneak up on you with school and other holidays. But 100 days to Halloween, come on, guys, it's just
get out of here.
It's a stupid holiday for babies.
Hey, I like Halloween, but I don't love Halloween, so
I know
be careful.
Don't. You're not that guy. I'm talking about that guy and that girl.
Listen, here's what I like. I like it when my wife and son drag me to a pumpkin patch and I have to do a stupid hayride.
Yeah.
Pick out a dumb pumpkin, bring it back to the dumb house, carve a stupid face into it. Then I like to take my kid out for a grand total of 15 minutes to walk as far as he can to like 6 houses. Come back here, get really drunk, and hand out candy to strangers.
Now you won't have to hand out candy to strangers.
While I watch Hocus Pocus.
Great movie. Haven't seen it forever. I don't know if
we watch it every year.
Should watch it with her. Make her watch it.
Dude, it's amazing. It holds up. We watch it every year when we carve pumpkins, and then I think we turn it on again during Halloween. And what strikes me is that is actually the role in which Sarah Jessica Parker looks her best, which is interesting.
Well, it's
because
probably because
it's
one of the times you see her at her youngest.
I don't need you to justify this for me. I mean, it should have been Sex and the City, but it wasn't. It was Hocus Pocus.
Yeah. Rachel's not a big fan of the occult, so sometimes it can be difficult to convince her to watch that kind of stuff.
Hocus Pocus is the occult?
Witches, man.
There's a
Witches.
okay, but it's Disney.
Witches.
Okay. All right. What? I see. That's why I kind of like not being able to see you, because I get surprised by stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can't see the wind up. What do you have going on your neck of the woods?
Oh, not much. Drinking some coffee out of a gamer's mug. And that's about it.
Does that gamer's mug, is it iced coffee?
Yeah, okay, so here's what happened. I made some hot coffee about 2 hours ago. And I was like, oops, that was a little too early. Because we didn't start until like 30 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I drank most of it. And then I poured some cold brew in. But then I still wanted it to be warm. The cold brew came out of the fridge. So I heated up some water in the kettle and poured it in. So it's this bizarre concoction. And it still tastes good enough.
Terrible.
It tastes good enough.
Stop drinking that.
No. I'll stop drinking it and you'll see the energy levels go down later. No,
okay.
I'm
keep sipping it.
I'm moving and I'm grooving. I'm making waves, as they say. And in my life, that is, not in anything important. Getting a fence, hopefully within the next couple of months. I just gotta get
moving on up.
Exactly. We're on a corner lot though, which means we have to go through these extra hoops with the city. That basically,
really?
Yeah, it's stupid. In addition, there's like a gas line pretty far away from our property line, but we just have to like triple check like that we're not going to do anything stupid.
It's interesting how many hoops you have to go through to build a fence, and yet these contractors just ripped out the trees without even telling me.
It wasn't on your side.
Technically it wasn't, but apparently I potentially have some rights on my, what they call an easement, which is like the edge of my property.
Oh, I know, because the easement's a dirty word, because every time it's used against us. Oh, but the easement. And it's like, you can't do this because of the easement.
Right.
Well,
right.
Shut up. Our puppy was born, the one in the litter that we're going to pick from. So we don't know which one it is yet, but in a couple of weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, we'll be heading up there to pick out the pup, and then another 4 we'll be bringing it home.
That's amazing, dude. We were lucky enough we did not have kids when we were getting Toby, and so the woman who was the breeder, she had 2 females, and she only did 1 litter per year with each of them, and she allowed people to come to her house as frequently as they wanted to visit their puppy, and so every single weekend from the time Toby was born until like the time we picked him up, we would go up there every single weekend. It was only about a 45-minute drive. So worth it. We'd spend like 30 minutes to an hour with him. It was amazing.
That'd be sweet if we lived closer, but it's a 2.5-hour drive, so that's not happening.
Well, and her theory, I don't know if your breeder will allow that, but her theory was that it made that transition away from their parents a little easier, because he
totally see that. Yeah. All right.
I don't know how deep dogs are.
Dogs are very. You do too. Dogs are very deep.
He seems to like us.
They're deeper than you. That's for sure.
Probably
the deepest of wells. Okay, so on to some preamble before we dive into a very meaty episode. Like, sub, follow, share, tweet, all that stuff. We love
mostly
to hear
on YouTube.
Yes,
because
mostly on YouTube.
What we learned today from a very nice PR person is that they do look at community engagement if they're going to hand out pre-release content. So if we had a slightly bigger following, we could start to get some pre-release stuff. So,
which
follow us.
Isn't really necessary because we don't.
No, it's
play
not.
anything
And
ever.
I don't mind paying for stuff. Honestly, it would be nice if they allowed us to pay to get early access. Like, I'd be fine with that.
That'd be an interesting.
I don't care about it getting free. I just want to have it early so we can let people know.
I love that idea. Like, hey, I got it here and I paid for it. Listen to me.
Right. Because then, yeah, I mean, actually, they should probably just start doing that. That'd be cool.
I guarantee there's legal reasons why they can't. Because they'd love to take our money. They're never not wanting to take our money. Anything else on the housekeeping front, Jason?
No NFT debates this week. Maybe. I think Greg and I might record tomorrow.
No shout outs, no corrections this week, so we are going to dive right into the news. At the top of the list, we have Rocket League is going free to play this summer. So presumably any day, because I didn't find a date on the article that I think came out like 2 or 3 days ago. What do you think about that, Mr. Rocket League?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that because Josh from Alabama actually wrote into us. And he says, with the recent news that Rocket League is going free to play, this also happened with Destiny 2 that I can recently think of. What do you guys think about a game that used to cost a fixed price becoming free to play? Another part, do you think DLC pieces or similar things that are sometimes offered are good enough incentives to the people that originally bought the game? Oh, and he also adds, I enjoy the podcast. Keep it up. So thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. We will keep it up.
Okay, so that's kind of a two-parter there. So first off, what do you think about a game that comes out at a fixed price and then eventually transitions to free to play?
I mean, I'm actually used to that model because for the longest time I was willing to check out and play nearly every single MMO that launched after I got introduced to World of Warcraft. And when there was like a boom of MMOs basically after the popularity of World of Warcraft, and a lot of them did this, like, it's $60 or it's $15 a month at the least, like even if it's free to, you don't have to pay an entry fee, but you do have to pay the monthly service fee. More and more of them just like, okay, it's free to play with a huge wall of cosmetics and microtransactions that you can buy into. So I don't really have a problem. I don't have anything to say about it, I guess. Like, okay, that's fine. That's a business model. The longer you want your game without basically slapping a 2 or a 3 on it, in the case of Destiny 2 or World of Warcraft 2 or whatever, the longer you want to keep that game alive, the more creative you got to get, and you take it as far as you can. And if you already have a sticker price, then you just take away the sticker price because eventually that's all you've got to do.
So what do you think is a fair amount of time to do that from a consumer standpoint? Like if I paid $60 for a game and 2 months later it went free to play and the only thing they're offering me is DLC, I would be pretty upset. Now, obviously that's not the case here with Rocket League, but what do you think is an appropriate amount of time before you do go free to play?
Well, whatever is appropriate, it's longer than Bethesda waited before they made not Fortnite, Fallout 76 free to play.
But they waited like 18 months to do that.
Yeah, they did, but before that they also chopped the price in half, like permanently, like almost out the gate because of how poorly it was doing.
And I do remember that was a total PR blunder because they were sending out these really crappy like handbags as a peace offering to the people who paid full price.
Everything about that game is a list of do nots, but I don't want to dive too deep into that. My point is it depends on the kind of game. Like a single player experience doesn't ever go free to play because then what's the point really, aside from like, specials on console subscription services or Epic Games Store stuff kind of thing.
Sure.
Which is a very small window, which Rocket League has been a part of in the past. I remember just after or just before I got my PS4, and that's been a while now. We're talking like 4, almost 5 years. Rocket League was free on PlayStation, when PlayStation was the most popular console in the country, and it still is, but even then too. So like a lot of people did get this game for free.
Sure. I mean, I am part of that camp. I got this game for free on PlayStation Plus. So Sony actually funded the development of this game. And so it was exclusive to PlayStation 4 at launch, and it actually launched as a PlayStation Plus game. So I did get it for PlayStation Plus, and then since then I've bought it on the Switch and the PC. So they've definitely gotten their money's worth out of me. And I'm with you. I think it kind of depends on the game and it depends on the business model. So I take it at a case by case basis. But it's interesting because you see this kind of go both ways. You have a game like Fortnite. So Fortnite launched originally as a game with a campaign, and it did not sell very well. And it saw what PUBG was doing, and it said, hey, it'd be interesting if we kind of did that with our engine and our assets and our thing, and just let's see where it goes. We'll put it out there free to play. And thus Fortnite was born. Obviously everybody knows Fortnite as the Battle Royale. It essentially, whether you like it or not, it essentially launched an entirely new genre. I know a lot of people say, well, you can't just take a game mode and make it a genre, but come on. Fortnite launched a totally new genre of games. And you've seen this. You see GTA put its spin on it. You've seen Call of Duty Warzone put its spin on it. You've seen all the big boys copying this. So, but I think Fortnite's popularized this, and nobody cares about the Fortnite campaign. So we've seen really successful versions of this. You've seen failures too. You take a game like Battleborn. Battleborn is a hero shooter that was launched by 2K. I think Gearbox was the studio who developed it.
It was.
Unfortunately, it launched as a hero shooter, and it launched like the same week as Overwatch. And it got crushed. I mean, it is what it is. It went free to play really quickly. And that was like back in 2016. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now, like in February of 2020, 2K shut those servers down. It went free to play, and it couldn't sustain. So I think sometimes free to play is a move that you make to try to breathe new life into your game that's not failing. And then you see the flip side of that too, because like a game like Anthem, you know, it had launched. A lot of people were saying this is terrible. Like this, a lot of people were calling for that game to go free to play, and it didn't at first. And now, honestly, it essentially is, because it's been absorbed into Game Pass. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, it depends on the monetization strategy. It depends on the timing of when it happens. And ultimately, I think all of that taken into consideration is what you would evaluate to say, well, is the DLC a fair peace offering to the people who bought the game full price? Now, for me, I'm totally fine with it. That I paid $15 for it on Switch. I paid $15 for it on PC and Steam, and I'm psyched to get the free DLC that comes with it. And I mean, I support that game. I love it. No qualms here. I mean, that game launched in 2015, so 5 years later, they go free to play. They're trying to expand their player base, stay relevant. They're obviously probably making more money on microtransaction cosmetics than they ever were just people paying full price for the game. It's not a very expensive game. Now, you talk about a $60 game going free to play after 2 months. Maybe we've got issues, but I have no issues here. You go, girl. I love this.
Yes, you go, girl. You go right to the Epic Store, because it's going to be taken off of Steam, which is, of course, no surprise to anybody, since they were purchased. Psychonauts, that is, the developer for Rocket League, was purchased by Epic. And so it was only a matter of time until Epic took it off of Steam, because unlike Xbox, they are in no rush to become some sort of ubiquitous software company, and they still want to try to carve out their own niche on PC markets. So if you have it on Steam, like Jason, you of course will be able to have access to it in perpetuity, but you will no longer be able to buy it from Steam very soon. That hasn't happened yet, and I'm sure it's in any article you pull up on this subject, but this is all happening very shortly. When it goes free to play is when that happens, so it all happens at the same time. So yeah, that's the Rocket League news for the week. We had a very disappointing Nintendo Direct. Now, they told us it was going to be disappointing in so many words in PR.
They did a great job setting expectation.
They did.
Really.
They said it was a mini, first and foremost, and they announced that like the day before, and then the morning of, or the evening of, like before, they said this is a partnership mini Direct. So like, not only was it small and short, it was going to, because mini directs can sometimes still be like 20-something minutes long and be pretty meaty themselves.
And that was like the last one was.
Exactly. And that was a good direct. I thought that was successful as far as like a variety and, you know, an excitement level, especially in the midst, or at least in the early throes of the pandemic quarantine. But then, in addition to saying it was a mini, they said there was going to be a partner showcase. That's the phrasing. Just basically stating, like, this is going to only be third-party stuff. There will be no Nintendo news here. So it's kind of like, at that point, it's just like, you're only watching just to say you did. And if you're going to get upset about it, it's kind of like on you. But at the same time, like, why'd you do it? Like, so what ended up happening is they announced, like, I don't know if they even announced, they brought 3 games to the showcase or to the direct, and they were like, whatever. And then they ended with 2 Shin Megami Tensei announcements, which was kind of annoying because Atlas shows up first and you start hearing some music. Like the logo for Atlas, the development studio for the Persona series, for the Shin Megami Tensei series. So here I was, stupid guy I am, like, are they finally bringing Persona to Switch? Which would be stupid because I'm never going to play that game anyway.
But it makes sense that you would think that, and a lot of people want that.
Exactly. And then it turned out to be a bit of a like red herring because it was like Shin Megami Tensei 3, devil something, because they're all about devils and angels and killing God or something ridiculous like that. And you're like, oh, well, that's kind of annoying since you guys said that Shin Megami Tensei 5 was coming. And then lo and behold, they had a one more thing sort of situation. And then they announced that SMT 5 was coming in 2021, which is nice. But at the same time, they said this game was coming even before the Switch came out. Before we even knew what it was, or just after we learned what the Switch was, they said, this is going to be an exclusive title, at least at launch, for the Switch. And so now it's just a matter of like hearing any other news, and we really didn't get much. It was a very teasery kind of trailer. Absolutely no gameplay. Looks fine. It looks like a Shin Megami Tensei game. The only cool piece of news really that I got from it is that it's going to be a worldwide release, which is new for that company. They're always releasing their stuff in Japan first by several months, if not a whole year or more. And so that's kind of always a bummer to have to. It's hard enough dodging spoilers 2 weeks after a game comes out, but when it's been in Japan and like the diehards and the IGNs of the world have played it and they're doing their best to get clicks on videos and stuff, and like it's eventually I don't know how you dodge, wanting to read up on it and stuff too. So it's cool that they're going to do a worldwide release. But that was it. That was all they had to offer, with no idea of like, okay, is this just like are we going to have something a little bit cooler in a little bit? Because Nintendo is just whiffing in 2020. And not to say that I
think they're just chilling, man. I think they're just
well, chilling is whiffing in the hearts and minds of people and interest and stock market.
Listen, are you not happy with Animal Crossing and Paper Mario Origami?
Well, I was playing happy with Animal Crossing back in March, and there was nothing before that. And I tried Xenoblade and I didn't like it. And now I'm waiting on anything else. And yeah, Paper Mario looks really good. And I probably will still get it later on, but just not now. There's no rush. But I don't know. I want to hear something else from Nintendo. Like September's coming up real soon. And that's that's the re-up time for a lot of people with Nintendo Switch Online. So hopefully they have something kind of fun planned to make sure that people stay subscribed. Last year, it was the Super Nintendo virtual stuff.
Yeah, they gave us like a whole 10 games or something like that.
Yeah, good ones. Ones we've played a million times, but,
yeah.
I did technically, play all through Legend of Zelda Link to the Past for the first time. Beat it and everything.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I cheated, but I did a lot of save scumming.
Well, I mean, that they gave you the ability to do that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think that's cheating.
It was mostly convenience sake. Because if you would die in a temple or dungeon or whatever, it's like, it takes you all the way back. And it's not really, there's no statement to say that I knew how to get back to that spot, or you make like a quick dumb mistake, that kind of thing. But I did use it heavily on the final fight, because Ganon is no joke, man. In that game, he is rough. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I don't have anything to say to that. I mean, I hope you're right with that. Yeah, I mean, and Nintendo's been pretty quiet in 2020. I'm just sitting here kind of thinking, like, what would they even have to announce? I think, it's hard to get a feel for the cadence of what this generation is going to be. So obviously, Microsoft and Sony are going to have their next gen consoles come out this year, but there's no precedent for when Nintendo is going to release a new console. I don't really think that they need to at this point, but I'm thinking about the major IP that they have left to launch, what's ready. The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm super excited for is the Metroid Prime. I mean, they could potentially have a remastered trilogy, and then they obviously have the new game in the works, but they've kind of obviously there's Breath of the Wild, there's Super Mario Odyssey. We know there's a Breath of the Wild 2 coming, but I don't know the timing of any of that, and I don't know what else I'd be excited for it. I mean, Smash is out. I don't think there's going to be another Smash. They've had Mario Party. They've had Mario Tennis. Maybe a new Mario Kart. I don't know. But like, what do you think? Like, if you were going to get hyped about something for Nintendo, what would it be? They put out a Fire Emblem. They've kind of gone on all their major IP.
I mean, yes and no. Mostly yes. There's Bayonetta 3. There is this Shin Megami game, which far more niche, but still incredibly popular, incredibly wanted. There is the Metroid Prime family of games you could do, and we talk about this all the time. There's this entire backlog of library of really still somewhat recent games or games that have just never seen the light of day outside of their original release that they could be bolstering these doldrums with, these dead, huge, long gaps as far as first-party stuff is concerned.
Well, what is that? I mean, I honestly don't have a really good feel for what's the studio structure within Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Would remastering those games or remaking those games put a strain on their resources such that we don't get new stuff? I don't know the answer to that question.
The answer should be no, because come on, Nintendo, figure it out. But at the same time, in a less flippant way, you had two systems that you were supporting simultaneously. Where is all the stuff that the 3DS teams were making? What happened? Yeah. They're not making new games anymore. What are those teams doing? And if they're just being pulled to work on the projects that would always have launched on consoles, it sounds like a huge mismanagement of resources. And I'm not getting doom or gloom here anyway, but I am, you say, oh, Nintendo doesn't have to put out a new console. I'm like, don't they though? It wouldn't surprise me in a year if sales for Switches dropped off, or if they don't. The kind of people that are buying Switches, we're gonna see the Wii Part 2, but not as successful. The Switch has been great. It was a nice shot in the arm compared to the Wii U, but it wasn't Wii successful. It wasn't 100 million seller. It's not gonna be 100 million seller, not anytime soon anyway. And so I don't know, man. Of course, I'll come running for some of them, but you got to think about the long term. You got to think about why you lost so many people before the Switch in the first place, and you're gonna do it again. You're gonna lose them again with the shiny new toys coming out. Zelda's great, Mario's great, but you're so stingy with it. Stop being so stingy. Make some new IP in-house that's worth playing. Give me something on the level of a Mario or a Zelda or a Metroid Prime that's not those things. Because what's the new IP they've released this?
ARMS. That's it.
Oh, no, ARMS,
really?
and then but they own a few things. So the other thing that comes to mind immediately, at least, is that Platinum game. It's sci-fi and anime and
not the Wonderful 101.
No. What was it? What was it called? I was really excited, and then when I saw more at release, I was like, this isn't the game for me, because I can't stand silent protagonists anymore. Ooh, that's gonna bug me. We'll put that in corrections next week anyway. But my point is, that was a third-party thing that they basically pay. Hey, make a game for us, and we'll own it, and it'll be great, and then we'll use it in the future, maybe. But just, I don't know, give something with mass appeal that isn't for babies,
yeah.
And I don't mean me. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm playing Story of Seasons. I don't have a problem with games that are cute and G rated and E for everybody and all that. That's not my problem. My problem is there's no substance to these games. And then you read the articles that are coming out about why isn't Paper Mario an RPG series anymore? Why don't they push the boundaries like previous games did? And you get these answers, and they're veiled and they're vague, but it basically says, the Miyamotos at the company, not just him, but all the people who think like him are don't do these kinds of things. That's for us to do if we want to, and they don't seem to want to. And so we're just sitting here on our hands, hoping that the old men at that company are feeling creative next week. And I don't know. I love the Switch as a handheld, but I I wouldn't say I'm particularly impressed with Nintendo, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, they're seeming kind of uninspired. And I think Astral Chain is the game you're talking about. Thank you.
Oh, my word. That is, yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, they're not seeming particularly inspired at this moment. And I don't know why. I mean, I kind of feel like in an alternate reality, they gave the reins to Nintendo of America and Reggie was at the helm. That's just not where we are. And I think this is, it's a super Japanese focused company.
That's a huge problem. And people say stuff like that all the time. Give it to Reggie. Let North America, like, that doesn't change who their developers are, though. That doesn't get rid of, I'm not about to list names aside. I don't want to keep saying Miyamoto because he's not the only guy there, but he is influential. And there's people like him who might not be quite as rigid and stuck in the past. But my point is, like, you're not just going to suddenly find yourself with a bunch of Western developers. Like, Sony had already started that before they then gave the more executive decisions over to the Western executives. They already had a bunch of Western studios and a lot of Eastern, Asian, Japanese, etc. ones as well. They had a nice mix of stuff starting to happen. And that's what Nintendo needs.
Right. Yeah. No, and I'm not suggesting they take that Sony path because at this point, I feel like Sony has really westernized. And I'm not suggesting Nintendo take that path. It's just like you say, give us something new. It's hard. It's hard to be a Nintendo fan in 2020.
Yeah. I refuse to believe they have untapped potential. There's not some weird like prison game or zero-sum game happening where like we can be, the quirky, fun kid machine, but we can't be this other thing. Like, find a way, because kids have PS4s, kids have Xboxes, but obviously adults are buying Switches too. It's not to say it's only for kids, both console and games, but figure it out.
Right, and that's their mentality.
Yeah,
and it always gets said like, well, Nintendo considers themselves a toy company. Okay, but it's not the 80s anymore. You're not making toys anymore. Like,
yeah,
come on.
I cry because I care.
Right.
Talked about that a lot longer than I expected.
Well, we had a lot of feelings to get out.
We did. It just came out of me. I don't know what happened. All right, but the biggest piece of today's news happened earlier this afternoon. Was the Xbox Games Showcase. So about a month ago, maybe a month and a week, Sony had their big showcase where they also showed their console, and then nothing more. But they had a lot of games. They wanted next-gen stuff running on next-gen hardware, and they wanted to get people hyped come September, October, November, whenever stuff is going to finally start dropping. And then Xbox finally did their version of that. And it was okay. It was fine. It wasn't bad by any stretch. Overall,
it was very much their version of that, just like you said. And I expected, I'll be honest with you, my expectations were high when I expected them to kind of outflank Sony, but it just feels like this was almost a carbon copy of what Sony did.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and dive into, we'll hit some of our favorite bullet points and skip the rest.
So you want to skim through?
Yeah, let's skim through. We'll start with the biggest thing, which is what they did. Halo Infinite, first thing right off the bat, they started talking about it. What did you think as someone who's at least played more than 20 minutes of a Halo game?
Yeah, not much more than 20 minutes. I beat the first Halo game. I think I bought the second Halo game. And that's probably about where I dropped off. So take this with a grain of salt because I haven't even revisited the franchise since probably 2006 or 2005 or whenever Halo 2 came out. So it's kind of interesting because you saw a lot of people comment on this and being like the aesthetics, the graphics, they're not great. They don't look next gen. And to be honest with you, I agree with that. Like it didn't appear to be next gen in terms of the graphical fidelity. And I do wonder how much of this game was quote unquote held back because it has to be cross gen. It has to play on the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X. And you are spanning 5 years of tech trying to do that. But if we kind of take that out of consideration, and just look at it for what it is, I thought it was interesting because you're looking at the largest map that a Halo game's ever had. They said that they really focused on exploration. This particular map was larger than the last 2 Halo games combined. They do have a campaign and a multiplayer. They added a grappling hook, which I'm super stoked about.
Yes.
It seemed to have a lot of more emphasis on like this kind of hand-to-hand combat, and I got Doom vibes from the encounters in general because of the speed of the combat and the use of melee and the closeness of the encounters.
Agreed. Very Doom-like.
And then one knockout, I will say that the HUD kind of bothered me. Because it did look like you had the helmet on. So you saw this kind of line at the top and this line at the bottom as if it were your view if you had the helmet on. But it was really kind of distracting. I don't think it was super necessary. But maybe that's what Halo's always been and I've just never noticed it. That's kind of my main knock about it. And that and the graphics, yeah, like it doesn't look next gen. But I mean, for me, I'm not a Halo fan. It doesn't bother me that much because it kind of is what it is. I think maybe it'll look better on Xbox Series X. Maybe it'll look better in its final release. It doesn't bother me that much, but I understand why fans would be disappointed.
Right.
What were your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on this are pretty much my thoughts on everything they announced and everything about this show, which is at the end, it doesn't matter because I have it for Game Pass. You know, like I have it through Game Pass because the problem with these things, not the problem, but the crux of these shows is they're trying to sell you something and you have to worry about, am I going to be able to get this or not? Well, and the coolest thing about this show, not to deviate away from the Halo talk too much, is that everything they showed is on the Xbox Game Pass, will be available on release on Xbox Game Pass.
With one asterisk that we'll talk about.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. So yeah, we'll get there. But as far as Halo, I have literally played like 2 hours, maybe 3 of the first Halo, just as a month ago. And I was, it's fine. Like I like it, but I just missed that boat and I've never played another one. This game has no hold on me whatsoever. And so all I can see is here's another first person shooter, a genre I don't care for that doesn't look good for the kind of money and prestige that this studio, that this game, and that this company that is Xbox and Microsoft have. Like, I'm sorry, but anybody who's like, oh, it's an art style choice, I'm like, no, it's not. You can see clipping, and I applaud them for doing just a straight up demo, and because you can see pop in from like the huge draw distance, which I don't mind. I have never had a pop in problem, but like I thought it was very bold of them to be like, okay, that's fine. It's fine to have a little pop in here and there. We're not going to like sweat it. And at the end of the day, I just really don't care. What I care about is all of a sudden people who I know on the internet, influencers and personalities like, it's fine. I'm like, nah, you would have ripped another game apart for this, but you have your Halo goggles on and you need to admit that, and that's okay. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect because they're offering something they've never offered before in the Halo franchise, which is a huge world. And I'm curious to how huge it's going to be as far as not literal size, but they've stated it's going to be quite open, but still not sure how open. Are we talking like, is this The Witcher, but with Halo? Or is it something a little less, Like, are there going to be like side quests? Like, what does this look like at the end of the day?
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I certainly couldn't even venture a guess, but yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing is I already stated I haven't played a Halo game really since 2005. This looked like in my memory what Halo looked like when I played it. So right. It's like this is a biased standpoint for me because I haven't followed the franchise, and so it's interesting, and you see this a lot. It seems like either franchises that are continued on or remakes, they'll kind of infiltrate your mind, and they will create something that is akin to your memory, and it then becomes hard to distinguish.
Yeah,
because you're like, oh, well, that's what I remember it being. But if you go back and really look at that source material, it's not. So it's really hard for me to judge the aesthetics of this game, because I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I remember Halo looking like. Like, this just looks like a Halo game to me.
It does.
And I don't know, but obviously hardcore fans are not super pleased. So
some are. Some people are excited. Some people have in my opinion, a correct view of, or correct. They're disappointed, and they're not wrong to be disappointed if they were looking forward to Halo looking its absolute best, and they clearly were, and it doesn't. And that's just the fact of the matter. Like, that's all there is to it. It does not look as good as it could.
Yeah,
at this moment in time,
it doesn't look next gen. It and I'm sorry, but it simply doesn't look next gen. It absolutely looks like this game could have come out on Xbox One, and no one would know the difference.
And it will. That's the point, and that's a strategy, and that's fine. But don't say that it doesn't look sub-optimal. We'll say that,
right.
Suboptimal.
Yeah.
But no, grappling hook, please, that looks so cool. I know they had
down
one
with that.
I know they had one in Doom Eternal, but I saw very little footage and I haven't played it yet. But so, I'm kind of like already like, oh yeah, Halo invented the grappling hook in first-person shooters.
Sure.
Coming holiday 2020, so obviously a launch game, which is cool. That's like, as far as launch games go, they've got PlayStation beat. Halo on your Xbox Series X is way cooler than Spider-Man Miles Morales on your PlayStation 5.
Yeah, but is it cooler than Bug Snacks? I mean, come on, Karch.
I was going to make that joke too. And the answer is yes, it is. Like, Bug Snacks starts like there's like a bell curve basically, and we're starting to come off the peak where people are like, Bug Snacks. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, that's enough. let's just cool it until we see the game in action.
You also have Jet the Far Shore, so I mean,
we will have Kana sometime in Kana Bridge of Spirits, and but that's going to be on PS4 too. So, all right, next game was State of Decay 3. Don't care. That's like a horror survival zombie game. That's not our deal, so we probably won't be playing it.
I want to make one note. The trailer was cool.
It was a cool trailer. Yeah.
I did enjoy what I played at State of Decay 2, but I do feel like that was a game that would not have been fun to play with by myself, and Tyler was not interested in continuing to play it.
Oh, I didn't know it was multiplayer.
And I get it. It's kind of grindy. But I will say, interesting choice and bold choice, and I commend them. It looked like a black female protagonist, and I couldn't name a black female protagonist in gaming.
Maybe am I thinking of different games? Don't you just swap people constantly in State of Decay when you die? Isn't it kind of like, wasn't it roguelike? Not to say that like this one isn't going to operate differently, but like, but yes, no, I noted that too, and I always want to applaud that. Not for any other reason other than sure, cool, why not? Let's do that. It's good.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had an answer for you. I think you're right. I think when you die, you just become a totally different person.
Right.
But I don't know. I can't remember.
State of Decay 2 was very buggy as well. I remember I heard a lot of people talking about that game that I listened to. It just happens that almost every outlet and channel and podcast were like, they had somebody who was playing that game. And whilst it varied as much as far as how much they liked it based on previous experience, etc., every one of them were like, it's buggy. I'm having crashes way more than I ever do on other games. And so hopefully they can iron out those kinks.
I hope so. And actually, that's probably one of the reasons we stopped playing it is because it wasn't a crash issue. It was literally a bug such that we couldn't complete a certain mission, even though we were reading guides on how to do it because of a certain bug in the game. And then we just stopped playing it. So, hopefully this one's a little bit more buttoned up and refined.
Yep. Then our friend of the show, Philly Spencer, came out and started talking about, company stuff. He was just schmoozing as he segued into the next Forza game, Forza Motorsport. They just called it Forza Motorsport. There wasn't any number on it. But they showed some in-engine footage of it. It's still in early development, but racing games always look just so cool as far as like their realisticness. So it's always fun to just see those. It's kind of like you just come to expect to see a racing game at these kinds of shows, and they're never
the benchmark for how pretty could a game look on this console.
Exactly, yeah, and it does. It looks super pretty. Unfortunately, my video at least was choppy at that moment. So like as some of those cars were like racing down that track at their super high speeds, it was like I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I had issues with that too. I actually was on like a 30-minute delay from live because I took lunch a little late, later than I wanted to. So what I ended up having to do was drop the video down to 720p, and it was a little bit better, but then you can't see how good it looks. So, but one thing to note is that they're doing ray tracing, and they're doing native 4K at 60 frames per second with this, which is it's kind of a bold claim to say that your machine could do that, and I think it tells us something about the power of the Xbox Series X.
Teraflops,
right? And I know that the PS5 is touting this.
It's comparable.
Yeah, they're comparable, but if I had to say raw horsepower, I would have to say that the Xbox is more powerful.
You don't have to. Everybody else, we already know that based on all the technical. Just like Xbox has the slight upper hand in that department.
Yeah. I mean, Sony's is pretending like their integration with this SSD is like God's gift to gaming, and they're going to be able to overcome physics to, break the laws of physics, and their games are going to be fantastic. And I have no doubt, and I'm a Sony fan, I have no doubt that the PS5 games are going to look good. But I also really feel like that a lot of that's marketing, and at the end of the day, I think if you're talking what's under the hood, the Xbox Series X is a more powerful machine.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Next up was a Rare Studios game, and it was cool but vague, called Everwild. And you just followed these 3 or 4 druid women of some kind as they did nature things. Like always, I got Viva Pinata vibes from it, even though it's clearly not that kind of game. But yeah, maybe it's going to be some weird take on that style, in which you like find creatures and things and you raise them. But they
chows.
What?
I said chows.
Exactly, chows. Yeah. And then somebody came on, like a person came on the screen after they showed the trailer. And
Louise O'Connor.
What?
That was her name, Louise O'Connor.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, she had a cool accent. They were based in the UK and all that. Mm-hmm. Man, you're cutting out a lot today. Zencaster's being weird.
Zencaster's being weird, but luckily I think Reaper's probably catching me okay.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
I thought this one was cool. The art style reminded me of like The Last Airbender, especially with like that kind of tribal, druid, native, or I guess indigenous people vibe. I would say I would like to see some gameplay on this to see what this game is about.
Yeah, same.
But I am intrigued.
Yep. See how magic and nature are one. It's basically the kind of the tagline that lady gave. And the concept intrigues me, so I'm ready to see more, but that's all we got. So Everwild coming sometime eventually. Then we had a new game by Don't Nod called Tell Me Why. Same kind of stuff that Don't Nod always does. Highly dramatic, emotional stories told in chapter episodes with maybe a slight supernatural bend. And
very much Life is Strange vibe from this.
Well, that's all they do. Well, not all they do, but
hey, they did vampire, okay?
They did vampire.
Vampire.
Spelled like vampire. Well, not spelled like, but basically you could pronounce it that way.
The interesting thing I found with this one is that the first chapter is coming out August 27th, which has to be before the release date of the console. So I wouldn't necessarily call it next gen, but obviously they're alluding to like the subsequent releases will be. I mean, I'm sure that first one will be smart delivery, and then the subsequent releases will be kind of like next gen.
Yep. Then we had some Ori and the Will of the Wisps. They had some. They're going to do some performance updates for the Series X and the smart delivery with all that, and it looked nice. They're going to do like 120 hertz and all that fun stuff, but really
4K.
They need to make sure that game runs good in the first place, because they had a couple technical hitches when I played it. Nothing like game breaking and nothing like that I couldn't just bear through. But it was interesting that they were talking about like, oh yeah, it's going to look amazing. Like, can you fix what was broken first?
They did mention premium audio tech that could not previously be simulated in real time, which I thought was interesting because you said there was that audio bug.
Mm-hmm.
So
That
it'll be
dumb
interesting
buzzing.
to see. Hopefully they are able to fix that.
Yeah. Then we have yes, this was interesting. We have
I'm
some
stoked about this.
private division, so not Obsidian will be creating
Publishing.
No, not publishing. Xbox.
Yep,
is gonna
publishing.
publish it. What? All right. So anyway, Outer Worlds update / DLC is coming called Peril on Gorgon. And it's coming September 9th. And it sounds like it's just going to be a whole new planet to do goofy hijinks and probably jump in and take a look at that and see what Gump can do to, destroy that world too.
Yeah, so what they talked about this one in the follow-up interview, and they said that they were going to be working and partnering with their quote-unquote friends at Private Division to publish, or they didn't use the word publish, but they said to release this one of 2 planned story expansions for the Outer Worlds. So that's what I thought was interesting is that if you recall, they already had a publishing deal with Private Division prior to their acquisition by Xbox. And everyone believes that is the reason why the Outer Worlds came to other platforms like...
No, it's not. No, we know that's why. I just misread the title cards. I thought Private Division was just simply working on the DLC while Obsidian worked on the other 2 games that we'll talk about here in a second.
Right, but Obsidian... So Fergus Urquhart was the studio head for Obsidian, and he mentioned that they were working on... that DLC for Private Division with Private Division.
Gotcha.
So I guess maybe it's a little unclear as to who's developing it, but if I had to guess, I would say that Obsidian's developing it, and then Private Division has some sort of deal with them. And the reason I say that is because this is the asterisk, because Phil Spencer said that every single game show that was owned by Xbox would be available via Game Pass, but that's not true because they had an asterisk at the bottom of this game, and what it said was the Outer Worlds Peril on Gorgon. So the Outer Worlds base game is available on Game Pass. Perils of Gorgon must be purchased separately, but Game Pass members get a 10% discount.
Boo.
So that's the thing is, all the games are quote-unquote playable on Game Pass, but this is considered a story expansion, and it is a separate purchase. And that's what leads me to believe there had to have been some sort of preconceived negotiation before Obsidian was purchased by Microsoft, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. And I'm sure it had to have been the base game plus those 2 planned story expansions, and I would imagine neither of the story expansions are going to be available on Game Pass.
Right.
But all that aside, this looked really cool. It's more Outer Worlds. I love Outer Worlds. It's going to be available September 9th. I could see myself purchasing this if the price is right.
For sure. Although I think I deleted my save file, so...
It should be saved in the cloud if you played it on Game Pass, I would imagine.
Well,
and there's nothing to say that this could be standalone, so we don't know that the progress will carry or not.
All right. So speaking of Obsidian and their antics, we saw the Grounded game again. We've seen it a handful of times at this point, and neither of us are particularly interested in it, but it was a funny trailer. They made a joke at the beginning. It says, if you want to play the biggest game of this season, then you should play Cyberpunk 2077.
That was awesome.
Because their game's about being tiny and small, so that was fun. And then they poked fun at themselves. I don't remember what it was, like themselves being Obsidian. What was it? I should have
They said that this game comes from a studio that's never made a game anything like this.
That's right. That's what it was. So it's fun. It's like this game from the beginning, and then especially this trailer, gave me huge Double Fine vibes. Like, these are the kinds of games that Double Fine makes, and these are the kinds of trailers that Double Fine makes. So it was really funny to have like a totally different company make this kind of game and stuff. And then to round out the Obsidian section of the show, they showed off very brief teaser gameplay footage of a new first-person Skyrim-like not JRPG, open world Stop saying JRPG.
Western
RPG called Avowed. And so funnily enough, it takes place in the world that their other RPG Pillars of Eternity takes place. So that's kind of cool that there's this existing lore in that. But that's all we saw. You're a big Skyrim fan, Jason, and you like Obsidian games. Are you excited for this?
Dude, they are going after Bethesda. I mean, honestly, first they come out with the Outer Worlds, which I feel like is a total... it's analogous to Fallout 4, and then they do this, which is analogous to Skyrim. Like, they are trying to be the new Bethesda, in a way. Also... No, hold on. We can wait for that. We can wait for that until we talk about the next thing. But yeah, I know I'm super excited about this. I know they showed virtually nothing about this game, but given how much I loved the Outer Worlds and given that they're saying like this is their expansive first-person RPG, it's the epic game that they wanted to make. They're taking advantage of the Xbox Series X, and this is going to be like the game that defines their studio. I know that's a lot of PR. I know that's a lot of marketing, but I am very excited for this game whenever it is going to come out.
Yeah, I want it to be those things for them. I'm not saying it will be, but I want it to, because you say that, and I agree that Outer Worlds is analogous to Fallout, and it is. It's a Fallout game in space, and not even really in space. I mean, it is in space, but it's still a Fallout game through and through. There's really nothing to the space thing that brings.
If it's even got that weird little 50s aesthetic where it's like this like kind of alternative reality where the 50s could, I don't want to call it steampunk because it's not steampunk, but it's like what if the 50s never really evolved beyond the 50s?
Right. Anyway, so we like that, and we want this to kind of be like a quote unquote Skyrim competitor or an Elder Scrolls 6 competitor, but so many people out there do not like the Outer Worlds. Like, it was a critical success for the most part, but it was not a commercial success. And in the hearts and minds of like the general gaming public, it seems to have fallen really flat. Probably because they wanted it to be like Fallout 4 done correctly. And I think that was a bit too much to expect from something that was turned around so quickly. But this could be better. And I really do hope, because Obsidian's, in everything they've always done, for the most part, whether that was their own fault or executive meddling or weird constraints, they've always fallen just a little short. You know, they make a good sequel, but it's not quite there, except for maybe Fallout New Vegas.
What about didn't they also make the Knights of the Old Republic?
But that game had problems separate from Obsidian, at least to my knowledge. It was cut short. Like, it was rushed because they were forced to get it out in a very small time frame. And what they did in that time frame is amazing, and it is still my preferred. Like, I prefer it over the first one. Not that the first one's bad in any stretch, but it suffers from all those, decisions that were forced upon them. Because the game was already made. They didn't have to, and that's where they've, in the past, that's where they've shined. Like, someone made a game that was amazing, and then they came in and they made an amazing sequel. Here's hoping they can do the same with their own initial, their brand new IP in this Skyrim looking game. And I don't usually like these kinds of games, but I always love an Obsidian game, so I will try this out. I will give it a shot.
I'll buy it. You can play with my thing because I'm gonna buy it.
Well, you don't have to because it's on Game Pass.
Oh well, hey, look at that.
So it's no skin. There's absolutely no threat for me to try it out, which will probably alleviate a lot of the problems I normally have with a game, because it's like, well, I didn't pay for it, so I'll feel comfortable to just do whatever I want and leave anytime I want.
Sure.
All right. So yes, good luck to Obsidian. Next game was by apparently a newish studio called Interior Night. I missed this because I had to. What's that?
Don't skip the best part of this. The head of Xbox Game Studios, Matt Booty, came out to announce this. And this is a little known fact about Matt Booty, but he's actually, his cousin is Jake Butt, the tight end for the Denver Broncos.
That sounds made up. Every word out of your mouth just sounds made up.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not. Somebody can fact check me.
Sure.
But sorry. It's It's Interior Night, London-based studio. The game is As Dusk Falls.
Did they show gameplay?
Well, they did show gameplay, and it's a lot like a Telltale game.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's set in modern day, and it kind of follows the events of these people who kind of had this intertwined. I guess there was an issue, like some sort of, I don't know what you call it, like an event at a gas station where this gas station was being robbed, and this people that were robbing it ended up taking hostages, and it kind of follows their intertwined stories before, leading up to that event, during that event, and then post that event. And they're saying that the storyline spans 30 years, and it's set in the American Southwest, which is interesting because it's a London-based studio, and they're making a game that's set in the American Southwest. And like I said, it looks a lot like a Telltale game. And then in terms of the art style, very much Telltale, but the gameplay, it's not fully animated. It's almost like it goes from picture to picture. It's almost like turning the pages of a graphic novel or something, because it's not fully animated. Like, you'll see a picture, you'll maybe have the camera move on that picture a little bit to focus on, like, maybe the person talking a little bit more or something in the background, and then you'll flip the page and it does like kind of this soft fade into like maybe the other character's reaction or whatever. And so I'm guessing this is some sort of adventure game where it's like you're making the choices for the characters and you're going through and you're learning about these characters, and so kind of like walking sim meets adventure game. It looked interesting. It had the very indie feel, and but yeah, it looked cool. It's probably not my cup of tea, but if you're into Telltale games, or I would say you'd probably enjoy this.
Yep. Title is As Dusk Falls. So yeah, check that out if you like it. And then next we had Ninja Theory presenting Hellblade 2, but not really, because you didn't see much of anything. Actually, it seems like you saw less than you did at the Game Awards announcement at the end of last year. It's going to take place in Iceland. That's kind of cool.
There is a developmental diary documentary out there on their YouTube channel that went live right after this event. And one other interesting thing to note is that this is being developed in Unreal Engine 5.
Yes, they did say that. Now, I wonder why they made a point to say that.
I was curious about that too. I have to believe that part of it, because of the emphasis that Hellblade, the first one, put on the audio design. Mm-hmm. We do know that there are a lot of unique features to Unreal Engine 5. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the first one was developed in Unreal Engine 4. I don't know the answer to that question. But it would make sense if they wanted to do some even more crazy audio stuff, that they could maybe would get a little bit more bang for their buck in Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, probably. And it'll probably help turn around the game faster too, instead of, making your own engine.
Sure.
All right. Then the head of partnerships came out and talked about partnerships. The biggest one being Destiny 2 coming to Game Pass, and of course the Series X, and that it will be available on mobile via Project xCloud. So I might actually play Destiny 2 finally.
I would play that with you.
Yeah. I know my friend at work, he was like, "Oh, why would they bring him?" I was like, "Dude, do you want to play with me or not?" He's like, "Yeah." And then we had a string of, some of them were world premieres, some of them were console, they call it console launch exclusives, which of course, and I just want to get this out of the way so I don't have to say it again and get into the nitty gritty. Obviously that means, in the Xbox ecosystem. I don't know why they use the word console when they don't. They got to stop doing that. They got to
It's really a weird marketing thing. I think what it means is that it will be launching probably simultaneous with PC, but it won't be coming to the Switch or the PS4 or the PS5.
That's exactly what it means.
Right.
It's just a confusing terminology that they still haven't hammered out.
Yeah. Hey, you did skip one.
What did I skip?
Psychonauts.
Oh my
2.
gosh! Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, Double Fine came out with a fancy logo that said, celebrating 20 years. And then Psychonauts 2. They've been talking about that for a long time.
Jack Black with the theme song.
Mm-hmm. That was, and his beard was intense.
I know. It's about like Robert's.
Yep. And
I've never played Psychonauts, but I did play the VR game that they put out with the PSVR, and I really enjoyed that. And this looks kind of similar because you had it looked like from the trailer, it looked like kind of like a puzzle platformer, but really trippy. And it looked like potentially you're in this laboratory and maybe you jump from brain to brain and maybe those brains are like different worlds. That's kind of like a similar vein to what the VR game did, where you're in a first person perspective, but you can jump from like your brain to like this other thing's brain. So like, the coolest part I remember is like you could jump to, at one point to solve a puzzle, you have to jump to a mouse's brain, and then everything else in the world is to scale, which was pretty amazing. And then you solve the puzzle, which opens the door so you can jump back into the human's brain, and then you can kind of continue on your merry way. I wonder, I bet you they're, just from the trailer, they're probably going to do something similar.
Well, that's what the first game did too.
Yeah, which makes sense. And the aesthetic was very, I mean, it almost looked identical to the first game in terms of the art style. Like, this is not looking quote unquote next gen, but it looked pretty cool. This is not that type of game that you're looking for uber graphics or anything like that.
Not at all.
But yeah, sorry. Then the Xbox head of partnerships came out. Then you had the sizzle reel of different console launch exclusives.
Yeah. We had Stalker 2, which I didn't even know there was a Stalker 1.
Nope.
Then we had a new Warhammer 40k game called Darktide. No love there.
No love there, man. It looks like a Vermintide, but modern aesthetic, like, and with guns.
Well, the 40k stands for like year 40,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that's their futuristic set. They have the fantasy setting, and then they have like the space fantasy setting.
See, I had no idea about this, and I was just thinking Vermintide with guns. Like, it could be cool.
And that didn't cross my mind, but the word "tide" in there kind of makes sense. So yes, it could be that. And so, all right, I'll change my tune a little bit. Next up, we had Tetris Effect Connected. This was weird because they were like, it's a game, and then it had this montage of people like with the camera pointed at them, holding a controller, playing. And then as the montage, more people collected, and eventually it became like a Tetris game. And then they killed everybody because the block came in. They all disappeared, and all those people died.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that they stole that footage of those people from the Xbox camera without their permission.
100%.
They filmed those people throughout the console, the Xbox One generation. They filmed those people playing their games with the Xbox camera, and then they edited them all into a happy montage without even asking.
Yep, it's terrible. So yeah, that's interesting because Tetris Effect definitely wasn't. Was that a PS4 exclusive before?
I don't know that it was a PS4 exclusive. I think it actually launched on VR on the Epic Game Store in VR exclusively at first, and it may have eventually made its way to PS4. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But not sure what the connected part means either. Like, it was not clear at all. So maybe there's some additional material out there. Like, you know,
I have to believe it means, because I don't think the first game, I think it was a totally solo thing, like a single player experience. I'm assuming that the connected part means that there's some sort of multiplayer component.
Yeah. And then we had another world premiere from the creators of SteamWorld. Some kind of it's really generic looking, but also at the same time kind of intriguing. It's called The Gunk. You're just this little platforming character, and you have some kind of like mech metal arm that looked like it was sucking stuff up and maybe like spitting stuff back out on some kind of like alien looking world. Definitely not an Earth-like world at all, or with Earth-like people, but you were a human character. That's all I got on that, but you know, I'll keep it.
The art style reminded me very much of Grounded. Like, it was very cartoony, but the environments were maybe a little more realistic looking, but I did get kind of like a Grounded vibe. So that kind of confused me. I'm like, okay, well, you have this game and you have Grounded. So
agreed.
Whatever.
Then we saw this game, the last Xbox, like they did a game showcase to kind of
back
like
in May.
What'd you say?
Back in May.
Yeah, back in May to show off some next-gen games, and this game was there. What we saw was pretty much just a trailer, and you kind of had no idea what was going on, and it was the medium, and so they finally showed what looked like gameplay anyway, and so they're working on this whole, basically, like there's two realities. This character can see what I guess is the regular world that we know, and then some totally different, like, you know, hellish landscape demon world, but the hook is that there's this kind of like dual reality gameplay thing where they render both worlds simultaneously. So you're going to be like, they were showing it side by side. I don't think you'll see it side by side. I think you'll just be going in and out of it, like, whenever, but I am very intrigued.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what's also interesting is we kind of got a taste of this in Dishonored 2. There was a particular level where you had this kind of like mirror or viewfinder that you were holding up. And as you walked through this level, if you were looking through the mirror, you'd see like this alternate reality. But if you put it away, you would just see regular reality. But in order to solve the puzzles and go the right direction and actually complete the level, you obviously had to use the secondary augmented reality viewfinder. And I think they achieved that in a similar way. And so this is really interesting. And the other thing is that what was kind of frustrating to me is during the Sony event, when we saw the Ratchet and Clank trailer, a lot of people were saying like, this is obviously it's due to the speed of the SSD and blah blah blah. This couldn't be achieved on any other hardware, and yet you see it here. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying this is going to be playable on Xbox One, but it's obviously achievable on other hardware. This just circles back to my contention that there's nothing super special about Sony's hardware. There's nothing that isn't achievable on other hardware. I don't think that this is the type of thing where you absolutely have to have a certain architecture. Otherwise, this game would be a PlayStation 4 exclusive, a PlayStation 5 exclusive. You can obviously achieve this on other hardware.
Yep.
Anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
Since it's a Game Pass game, I will definitely check it out.
Totally. On PC, by the way, which doesn't have crazy integrated system on a chip, SSD, whatever.
Exactly. All right. Next, we had a world premiere. Sort of. Yeah, it was a world premiere. Sega has a new, I guess it's an expansion to Phantasy Star Online 2, which came out at this point years ago. It just recently finally made its way to the West. So Sean, are you listening? Sean, Phantasy Star Online 2, new Genesis. Let's play.
This one was not for me. You guys can have it. I remember playing Phantasy Star Online at Sean's house on the GameCube, and I remember being like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm gonna be a healer, and then just being like, oh gosh, I don't know, man.
Why do you always make those bad decisions? I'm gonna be a healer. You are not that guy. Don't heal.
I was like, I'm gonna be a healer. No, I'm gonna be a tank. I'm gonna be a bard. No, I'm gonna be a tank. I don't know why I do that to myself. All I know about this particular trailer is that when I saw it come on and go, I said to myself, like, the trailer looks like it was made in 2001.
All Japanese games look like that, dude.
It was weird. It was like this super retro music, like. Well,
Phantasy Star it's a deep history all the way back to like the Master System. So.
Oh, but but as a not fan and as a person that had no idea what was going on, I was just like, this is killing me.
Sure.
It's just like this terrible music that belonged in a Super Nintendo game over this gameplay that looked like it belonged on PS2.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a really old game at this point. It's technically like this gen or just before it, because I think it came out on PC only for the longest time. Anyway, I have no idea what this is though. I don't know what this is. It was like, it just showed this guy. It was a completely cinematic trailer and it showed some gameplay, but the gameplay is, you already know what the gameplay in these kinds of games are. And so I have no idea what this game is. I think it's probably just an expansion.
It said 20th anniversary PSO. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a remake. I don't know if it's just an expansion. Yeah. I really don't know.
Probably just kind of breathe some new life into it since they're clearly not going to move on from this game yet. So
sure.
All right, then this was a Remedy game, right? Did I read that correctly?
It was Smilegate Entertainment / Remedy. I don't know what the relationship between those two studios is. Remedy's not a publishing arm. I don't know if that means Smilegate helped them develop this and maybe Remedy just did some final touches or what. But yeah.
So yeah, it's a first-person shooter, kind of near future. Like, so that, they clearly had some tech that a little bit beyond what we have in modern times. A horrible X gonna give it to you remix thing. Like it was all, I didn't even notice until like near the end of the trailer. I was like, what? Oh my God, why are they doing that? Because it's called Crossfire X.
Yeah.
Stupid.
And the interesting thing is this trailer was literally just for the campaign of it.
Yeah, that was weird. This one had a lot of little like addendums at the bottom of the screen that I didn't catch all of, but yeah, like Crossfire X I guess is a thing that already exists, maybe even today as like a playable game. I'm not sure.
Was this the one we saw at the very beginning of the showcase last time? That was like the one that showed off ray tracing and the kind of like more, it was like a first person shooter where it had like melee combat. Was that this game?
I think you're thinking of the PS5 thing where it was like raining and dark and stuff.
Yes.
That was the PS5 event. I don't remember what the game was, though.
Interesting.
Anyway, moving on, because we don't have anything real to say about that.
Right.
Then they had one more thing. Right before that, of course, they reiterated everything today will be available on Game Pass, except apparently the Outer Worlds DLC. But they had one more thing. The trailer starts, Xbox Game Studios, world premiere, Playground Games, a studio owned by Xbox as of 2 years ago. They have previously only worked on Forza games, so their pedigree are racing games. And then you see this fairy flitting around, and I called it in my head. She's flitting around a sword, then a skull, and then a fish, and a bunch of mushrooms, and it's like there's this vista, and it pans out, and you can see like a city in the background, and then she gets eaten by a toad, and then it's it's Fable. So
I liked it. I thought it was too funny. I thought the narration was really funny. Mm-hmm. Because they said something about like not all stories have a happy ending, and then the toad ate the fairy. I dig it. What I hope for Playground Games is that they make a transition into this genre in the same way that Guerrilla did with Horizon. So Guerrilla previously, it's a Sony studio. It kind of only made what's their first person shooter that they Killzone. Yeah, they would make Killzone games, and that's kind of what they were known for. And then all of a sudden they make Horizon Zero Dawn, a third person action RPG. And so like it's not unheard of for studios to make this transition. And it was announced that they were going to be working on an open world RPG in 2018. They didn't say what it was. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know that it was established IP. But when they were acquired, it was said that they wanted to work on this game, and Microsoft gave them that opportunity. So kudos to Microsoft for believing in their team and letting them work on what they want to work on, and giving them the funding to do that, and not just be stuck doing the same Forza thing that they do. And so I hope for the best, because I'm a Fable fan, and I hope this turns out.
Agreed. I am a Fable 1 fan. I kind of liked Fable 2. I didn't ever finish it, but like it didn't click with me the same way the first one did. And I hear the third one got just a little too far away from what it originally was. So like, I don't think they're gonna go back to basics with this, because you just don't do that kind of game anymore, especially for something, that Xbox is going to want this to be a premier kind of title, whereas the original Fable was just kind of like, hey, here's a fun idea. But I hope it's good. Again, I'll check it out. It's on Game Pass.
Woohoo!
So there's no reason not to. But
by the way, that first-person game that I was talking about that I thought was the Crossfire X, it was actually called Bright Infinite Memory, or Bright Memory Infinite.
Right.
That was the one I was thinking of from the beginning of the Xbox showcase in May.
Gotcha. All right, so that's the showcase. Any last thoughts on that before we move on?
Just to note, I mean, obviously there was no pricing, there was no release date, and I guess we should have expected that, but I was just kind of hoping for it. I was hoping they would try to outflank Sony, and I just don't know how long they're going to continue to play this game.
Yeah. At this point, it's fun. Like, at first I was irritated, and now I'm like, all right, let's see how far we can go before they drop this bomb on us.
Well,
like,
and
how scared are they? Oh my gosh, how scared are they?
Like, come on, what are you going to raise it? $50, $100? Or is it going to be like, this is a $1,200 console?
Right.
Like, come on. And it's interesting that this past week, Sony was reported to have doubled the manufacturing of their PlayStation 5 based on what they're saying is an increase in demand. But to what other people pointed out, and what was my first thought as well, is what are you basing that on? I mean, supply and demand, if you just go to basic economics, what controls that primarily is pricing. And so without anybody in the market knowing what pricing is other than you, how are you projecting an increase in demand? They doubled it. They doubled it from 5 million units to 10 million units. Mm-hmm. What are you basing that on? Like, that's an insane amount of increase
Weren't
in
pre-orders
production.
Up? Like, even though you couldn't you put your name down for a pre-order?
I don't know. If that's true, then I don't know about it.
I mean, that's something. You, like you said, like, pre-orders can be canceled, and without a price, you're walking on thin ice counting those chickens. And yet at the same time, ordering 10 million ahead of time in a still shaky, production line kind of, time what we're at, it's not the worst idea either. Like, they're not going to not sell 10 million units. Maybe not as quickly, but they will sell them. Oh, yeah, they'll definitely sell them. By the way, I just Googled PlayStation 5 pre-order, and I cannot find Well, then It's even dumber. Like you said, what are they basing that off of? Could just be a bunch of hoopla, a lie.
Oh, wait, okay, so they have a PlayStation 5 page on Amazon, but I'm not seeing like a button that says you can order it or you can reserve it. I'm not seeing anything like that. Just a kind of a advertisement product page.
Right.
So.
All right. So, yeah, hopefully we see a price soon from somebody so I can start saving up. I mean, I should start saving now anyway, but
sure.
I'm probably not gonna. I'm probably just going to I'm going to make a bad decision one day, like 4 months after it launches.
Right. During the podcast, I'll be like, I dare you to do it. Just do it, Karch. Do it. Pull the trigger. Do it.
That'd be fun. We should plan that.
Oh, yeah. Let's plan it. Put it on the calendar. Yep. Speaking of prices.
Oh, yes.
This week, maybe even just today, Ubisoft confirmed on their maybe quarterly earnings call that their cross-gen games are going to be $60, which was interesting because 2K just mentioned the last 2 weeks that their cross-gen games are going to be $70. So you already see this kind of people trying to figure out what the market's going to be. Now, Ubisoft did not comment on what their future games were going to be priced at, but to be fair, who would comment on products to be available in the future that aren't even announced yet? So, I mean, I don't think we can necessarily make any assumptions based on that information. But what we can say is that Ubisoft cross-gen games are going to be $60.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, it sounds bad. It sounds like bad news.
Why?
Because, we talked a little about this before, but yes, I understand that legal reasons would probably prevent you from saying anything, even if it's an obvious sure thing that the games are going to be $60. But for something that's been going on for 10 years and you can't guarantee that that's going to continue, only tells me that you're considering strongly, or at least moderately, about raising the price on games in the future, like in the near future.
Why wouldn't you leave your options open, knowing what 2K has done? Why
do I care what their options are? I want them to tell me what it is, and I want them. What I want them to do is say they're going to stay 60, and then when they don't say that, I am now upset because they're probably going to raise them to 70. Not that I care because I don't buy Ubisoft games, but it's just the This is the trend. It's going to start happening.
Well, and the other interesting thing to note here is that Ubisoft has their own subscription service. It's $15 a month, and you have access to every single one of their games, day and date, just like Game Pass, as well as a lot of their retro catalog, which was really interesting. And I do wonder if that plays a role in their decision of pricing, because 2K doesn't have anything comparable. So I wonder if that's kind of padding them, and they're waiting to see, is that going to help them keep their pricing at $60?
I mean, you're starting to talk like a suit in regards to or not a suit, but the people who are like, oh, they need to do it. 2K doesn't need to because they don't have a subscription. That's not why they're doing it. They rake it in with microtransactions on on NBA games alone, like to probably support the whole company,
Sure.
let alone like just that game. It could, maybe they won't feel the need to, as they maybe try to pivot towards pushing the subscription more. Or at the same time, a $70 price tag pushes people to a subscription faster than anything,
Sure, yeah.
People will be flocking the Game Pass real quick if they haven't already, if they're able to, as games, if and when games start to go up to $70.
Sure. And I feel like that's, smart on Microsoft's part, because most people, like, if you look at the analogous industry, it's definitely movie and TV show streaming, right? So Netflix, that's a competitor to Game Pass in a way, and so is Hulu and all the others, right? A lot of people who try to min-max it will be like, well, yeah, I'll get HBO, I'll get HBO now when Game of Thrones drops, and then I'll only have that for 2 months. I'll binge that show, and then I'll pick back up Hulu and what's the one with everybody? The U.S. is horrible, and we're making women have children. What's that show? Handmaid's Tale. Yeah. I'll get Hulu when the Handmaid's Tale comes out, and then I'll get Amazon Prime when the next Jack Reacher season comes, and I'll cancel them all. Mm-hmm. But real people don't do that. Real people get in, they're like, yeah, they set it and forget it. They're like, whatever, it's $15 a month. It's not that big of a deal. It's a Netflix subscription. So I do think it's a smart move, because there are going to be those outliers who do like plan on the releases and when they're going to beat it and how much time they're going to put into it, and they will make a point to subscribe for 1 month, beat that game in the month, and then drop it, and then maybe subscribe to the Ubisoft one, and then they'll beat the new Assassin's Creed, and then they'll drop it. I think for the most part, people are going to just subscribe to Game Pass and leave it.
Agreed. I will. I'll have, this will be my Netflix. I might do that, deploy a strategy that you just described with additional ones, but this will be the one that I get the most bang for my buck, that I use the most often. So I'm going to be sticking with Game Pass, for the foreseeable future, without thinking every month, oh, should I cancel it? Nah, I'll just leave it. It's $5. What do I care?
Well, yeah, especially while the PC version's in beta and it is only $5. Because it will eventually go up to $15 when there's parity with console library.
No. That's never happening. You said that. That's never happening.
It is happening.
No,
why?
Games like Kingdom Hearts are on Game Pass console right now, and there's a couple other ones that are not on PC that will never make it to PC. I don't know what you like. Why most, do you think maybe, that? But they're not all coming to PC.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah,
they've made that claim, so it's not just me saying that. Microsoft has said
that claim makes sense for their games, which I think are already all on PC, because they've been making that claim for a while. But like I said, Square is not releasing Kingdom Hearts on PC. It's not happening. Well, and so there will always be those outliers, and that was my point. Like, you can't have true parity.
What will happen is the contract will be changed, and then games like Kingdom Hearts will leave Game Pass, and then the new deal is, if you want to be on Game Pass, you're coming to both.
True. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so eventually it'll just be what it is.
They'll trickle out, and the only thing that trickles in. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that is the long news section. Woo boy. So those games are coming. But we've got games we want to play right now, Jason.
We do.
What's the one game we wish we were playing?
Both of us. Ghost of Tsushima. And the only thing standing in our way is you.
It's true, because I said I'd buy it, and he's going to mooch off me. And I'll probably... Man, I listened to a review, and I've got it sounds so fun. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like Horizon to me. Not, obviously, in almost any way, actually, but like it'll fill that kind of... that it'll satisfy and check the boxes that Horizon does in a game like that I like, in a way that obviously The Last of Us Part 2 didn't do, and things like Harvest Moon it won't do, and I'm excited.
I am too. If anyone's been listening for the past couple of weeks, I've been kind of down on this game, especially after the state of play. I was just like, not for me. Then I saw a couple of GIFs of combat this past week, and I'm just like, dude, let's go, man. Let's go. And if I had bought The Last of Us, if I had beaten The Last of Us this past week, I probably would have been just like, Karch, I'm buying this now. You could pay me half if you want to, but I'm buying this now. Unfortunately, I haven't beaten The Last of Us 2 yet, but yeah, I'm super stoked to jump into this, and hopefully the timing is such that when you pull the trigger on this, I can just go right into this out of The Last of Us.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'll probably pick it up this weekend. If not the next week. I'm kind of hoping and waiting, although I just personal stuff, but I want to do it when I have time to play it, and I want the kiddo to be out of the house because that'll be the only time I have like guaranteed time to play it for more than like an hour or two every other night. So I'm seeing if I can hold off until then, and if I can't, then I'll just pick it up soon and just be whatever. I can't. No, you're right. I can't. I lied. I'm gonna go buy it right now.
Yeah, go buy it right now because we're sending Luke to the grandparents tomorrow.
Oh, no, cool.
Saturday. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. Like, I probably will. I mean, that's going to be date night. But I'm definitely going to beat The Last of Us 2 this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jason, tell me about The Last of Us 2 since you've been playing it and you're so close to the end.
I'm 19 hours in, dude. And 19 hours for everybody else. That's the point at which you beat this game. So I am in the home stretch. I know I am. And I'm still, I mean, I'm high on it. I really am. I'm high on it. And I totally get the criticism against it. But for what it is, I don't think it ever claimed to be anything that it isn't. It's not a scenario where, like No Man's Sky, where it made promises that it didn't keep. Like, I think this is The Last of Us 2. This is an iteration of The Last of Us 1. I know that sounds simple to say, but it's a refined version. It's made a lot of improvements. Sure, the story isn't so far as good as The Last of Us 1, in my opinion. And part of that's just it's not as novel. It's not as new and fresh. But for its gameplay, and once you understand what it's trying to accomplish, and I think it does that really well. So I know I'm speaking in a lot of generalities. Obviously, I'll save a lot of my commentary, my specific commentary, for the spoiler cast that hopefully we get to do in the next couple weeks here. But 19 hours in, and I think I'm probably having more fun with it than you did.
Probably, but not by much. Let's not get out of hand here.
Sure.
But yeah, I will say something refreshing about Ghost of Tsushima, to bring it back to that real quick. It's like, it's nice to be able to listen to, and then eventually I'm sure be able to talk about a game and without walking on eggshells. Like, I'm tired of not being able to talk about this game, and it really only in any way that matters because it's so story focused, and it's just like I can't say anything about it for a month plus,
right?
Because and like I listened to the Ghost of Tsushima review, and it's like, you know, they're technically spoiling things, but in such a way that it just doesn't really matter, you know. It's like it's okay that I know that now because it's not going to damage anything about the game because it's an open world style thing, and it's broken up by side quests and main quests and exploration, and there's so many like pieces that come together as the whole, whereas The Last of Us is one unbroken solid thing.
Totally. It's more like a movie. You can't talk about you can't talk about a mechanic you unlock at point X because you could spoil whatever, and yeah, I mean, it's really hard to discuss in generalities. So
for sure.
I'm with you. What have you been playing, Karch?
I got Panzer Paladin. That came out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Look at you.
What'd you say?
I said, look at you.
Look at me. I just bought it on a whim. Not a whim. I'd seen it before. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's an 8-bit style game. It looks more like an SNES game that's trying to mimic 8-bit, if it's the best way to put it. It's pretty good. I haven't played a lot of it, unfortunately, because I only got a little bit that day, and then I had I dove into a lot of story of seasons yesterday. But it's fun. There's basically, it's got this very goofy kind of Saturday morning cartoon story. The main character, Flame, is like an android. She looks completely human, but she is an android, and she runs in an intelligent, sentient, giant mech bot named what is it? Grit. That's his name. You know, they've got this like, you know, there's cutscenes between like whenever you finish a particular stage. There's all these little cutscenes with this director, and he's got this big hair, and he looks straight out of like a Japanese, like an anime movie, like Lupin the Third or something. And he's got an eye patch like Nick Fury from the Avengers. So that part's fun. The gameplay is very simple, but very fun. You pick up weapons dropped by monsters, and you can hold 4 of them at a time, and there's different stats on them, and they all have these spells that you can activate by destroying the weapon. And it's, very encouraging to just kind of like use those weapons up because you're going to get a bunch more. The weapons that you get from every level could go into a stockpile, so you can swap them out at any time in the level, or you can use them to upgrade your mech unit. And by upgrade, I mean just increases health bar, so it doesn't die as quick. It's a little on the easy side for these kinds of games, so it's not as hard as like Shovel Knight or The Messenger, but it also has difficulty mode, so I'm only playing on normal. I haven't touched hard yet, so hard could be a lot harder. But for the most part, you get 3 lives at the start of every stage, and there are checkpoints, and you get to the boss, and I have beat every boss by like the skin of my teeth without losing all my lives, and then presumably if I lost all my lives, I'd have to go back to the beginning regardless of checkpoints. But I'm enjoying it, and it's clearly going to be pretty short. Like I'm sure I'll beat it in like 5 hours, maybe a couple more than that. But it has a lot of replay value. It's got some remix mode. I don't know what that is, but it has it, and I don't get it until I don't unlock it until I beat the campaign. It's got speedrun test things. It's got in-game achievements. So there's still a lot of bang for your buck as far as a $20 game. So yeah, it's cute, it's fun, it's a nice bite-sized experience. You can just jump in and play for 20 minutes and feel like you accomplished something, if that's the kind of thing you're looking for in a game. Panzer Paladin. Buy it today on Switch or PC.
Taste maker.
Mm-hmm. Well, we played a game together.
Yeah, we did. Well, we played some Streets of Rage 4 on Sunday, just like we said we were going to do.
Promise is a promise.
Yeah, and I mean, I enjoyed my time with it. I had fun with it. It was really a lot harder than I thought it would be, but it's very much, it's a callback to the beat 'em. I mean, it's a beat 'em up, plain and simple. I got, like, in my experience with beat 'em ups, I got like vibes from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtle in Time, kind of mixed with Double Dragon. And that's, it's funny though, because I remembered some other beat 'em ups that used to play. There was the Simpsons arcade game.
Love that one.
Chuck E. Cheese.
So good.
I don't think you could get that on anything else. I think it was just an arcade game at Chuck E. Cheese.
It never came out for anything else. It's on my top 100 list, top 100 games of all time list.
It's so good. But, yeah, anyway, so Streets of Rage 4 though, it's a 2D, beat 'em up. Just like all those other games that we just mentioned, it was super hard. You got to pick like one of 4 or 5 different characters. They all had kind of special abilities. And my only gripe about the game, and maybe this is just because of how early in on the game we were, but it was hard and there was seemingly no way to upgrade your character or make it any easier. You just had to get good at the game. That's it.
I mean, that's how these games work. They don't have progression.
But the thing is it's not a nuanced combat system. It just seemed like
it's not supposed to be. Like if somebody could make a side scroller beat 'em up and then like enhance it and evolve the genre and do something you're talking about. But this game was made to simply be the 4th in a series of games that came out 20 years ago. It wasn't trying to do anything like that, and none of the games that we've mentioned did that kind of stuff. It's just how it is. It's about beating it quickly and beating it, like going through it multiple times and unlocking the characters, because we unlocked one of them, and I think there's at least like 2 or 3 more to experience, and there's speed runs and there's boss runs, and again it's like Panzer Paladin. From start to finish, especially once you get better at it, it's not a very long game, but there is a lot of replay value as in different modes and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I would play some more, but it's not one that I'm like, oh, I have to beat this. And Agreed. It's definitely not one I would play. I would pay for. It's one that's like, we played it because we had Game Pass.
For sure. Although it's not very expensive. I think it's $30 or $40.
I wouldn't pay that much for it.
Yeah, me neither. Because it's just not my genre. It's not my thing. But I agree with you. Like, there is nuance to the combat. Like, I don't need progression. Like, I don't mind getting good. But at the same time, it's just not my style. It's like, it's not the kind of game that I like to play, and it's not what I want to put my time into and get good at. I'd rather do just something else. Like, I've always hated the 2D plane of up and down, and how hard it is or how easy it is to like be just a hair too high or low on an enemy and miss them. But for some reason, they don't miss you. It's like one of those situations.
Sure, yeah.
Or like you're striking, and so you miss, and then that's their opportunity to move into your space and hit you. And there's just a lot of teeny tiny things that I've always had problems with the genre, but it's always really fun to get together with friends. I wish we could play it with our other friends, but you can't do 4-player online. Like if we had all 4 of us in the same room on whether it was a console or PC, we'd be able to play 4-player co-op, but you can only do 2-player co-op online. So it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, it's a strange limitation. If you can play with 4, then you should be able to play with 4. But
yep.
I played something else this week, believe it or not.
I don't. Tell me about it.
Big gaming week for Jason. It's funny because we're going to have I went through all the games that I played this year, and there were some weeks that I really didn't play much. This week was a good week for me. But Tyler and I played some more Borderlands 3, and as we suspected, that game did open up more, and we are enjoying it. And I say bring on the side quests. We got to experience a very, very cool boss battle. I love the boss battles that are big, that are epic, that are in the arena, that have a lot of cover spots, that have a lot of like minions where you have to kill them to get more ammo to beat the big boss, and it is a little bit of a struggle. And we encountered one of those, which was really cool, and it felt very rewarding. It was a major story point in the game, and then it like super opened up from there. So you're talking, we were very linear for a while. Got to the big boss battle. It was a super cool fight. Got a lot of great gear. I was level 10 going into that. I gained level 11, but I picked up a lot of level 12 gear, and that kind of was the carrot on the stick to. We had the opportunity to like leave this planet and go on to the next thing, but I wanted to do side quests to grind to get to level 12 to open up those guns before we left that part of the map or whatever. So I'm getting addicted to the grind. I'm super enjoying it. And at the end, we did a couple of side missions, and I did unlock level 12. And so I have a skill point next time we get to go in. I have a skill point to give. I have weapons I have to reconfigure my loadout and stuff. So I'm digging it.
Cool. That's great. Turnaround since you were so down on, or you were starting to get real disappointed with where it was heading.
Yeah, we had 2 sessions that were disappointing, but this time, we know how to get into a game. So that's not a 20-30 minute ordeal.
Sure.
And
that's a big deal.
We know what to do. We know what to expect. And now that it's opened up more, it's been a lot more fun. So
right. Did you play anything else, Jason?
No, not this week.
I'll talk a little bit about Story of Seasons before we wrap up, because this is going to be our last segment for the day since we went a little long on the showcase news, but that was important, so we wanted to cover it. Story of Seasons. Marvelous Entertainment, whatever your name is, whoever made this game, I got a bone to pick with you. You took my little girl's horse away. She loved that horse. She named it Horsey. It had just grown up. She was able to ride it into town. And then Moogie, that 2-timing, taken back given old man from Yodel Ranch, comes up and says, hey, you don't love this horse enough. I'm taking it back. Who does that? Who just takes a little girl's horse away from her? She was so upset. This is Friends of Mineral Town, not The Last of Us 2. I shouldn't have me be teaching my daughter at 7 years old harsh life lessons where people steal your animals from you.
This was a loss. This was a major loss.
She's like, Daddy, I swear if he takes one of my animals away, I'm never buying anything from him again.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't think you mentioned this just now. In previous conversations, you said the way he took it back is he told Julie, he told your daughter, he said, you're not loving this horse enough, and I'm taking it back.
Those were pretty much his exact words. It's very harsh. Very harsh for a 7-year-old who doesn't understand video games.
Who says that? Who says that? You're not loving this thing you're loving enough. You're not loving it hard enough.
Right.
So I'm taking this back.
It's a very bizarre mechanic. And when she said that happened, I was like, oh, that's right. That can happen. And it's not hard to make sure your horse is loved enough by the time frame, like the little time frame they give you, but it's also kind of easy to let it slip because the horse just runs around your farm. And if you don't go seek it out to pet it and talk to it every single day, you might forget for a string of days. And at that point, you might not be able to catch up in time to because there's an affection level that goes up when you do those things. And it was just kind of like, it's weird. Like, because the horse is utterly unnecessary, except, well, there's a festival in which you can race it. And if you race it well, you win prizes and stuff. And so it's like, but he's not going to let her try again. And I'm probably going to lose my horse too, because I've been ignoring it. So by the time I get to that same part, I'm going to lose my horse. So I won't be able to race it in the festival. And that's going to push the progress. It's stupid. It's stupid. It was stupid back then. It's stupid now. But they made this game like 1-to-1 pretty much. So
what are you going to do? I mean, it could be that you guys are just neglectful horse owners.
It's true. We're bad gamers and we're bad horse owners.
So, I mean, that's an option. But I'm going to choose to side with you on this one. I think it's...
Thank you.
It's a little bizarre.
I agree. All right. So, yeah, like I said, we went long on the first portion. So we're going to save our Game of the Year so far conversation for next week. But stay tuned because it's going to be good. We'll be able to devote a little extra time to it. So, assuming there's no news next week, but I don't think there will be. I think we're going to have a dull, kind of a lull week as far as gaming news. So it'll be a perfect opportunity to talk about what we've played and then what our favorite stuff was so far in that list of stuff. And then, Sean, we'll get you your question next week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, then that's all we have for you guys this week. You can find us at neverfreetoplay.com or patreon.com/neverfreetoplay. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Hope you all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.